Kieran's boots echoed against the stone floor of the alien palace, each step a reminder that he was hopelessly out of place. The walls shimmered with a living light, pulsing like veins beneath polished crystal. He had come to explore, maybe trade, but not to be caught in something unthinkable. His heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the warning in his mind. Don't make a mistake here. One wrong move and... A sudden hush fell over the great hall. Kieran froze. At the far end she appeared, the alien queen. She was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Her height alone would have dwarfed a human tower, but it was her presence, imposing, magnetic, that stole his breath. Her skin shimmered with faint, shifting colors as if the air itself bent around her, and her eyes, deep, unyielding, and yet strangely knowing, locked onto him. Kieran tried to bow, careful not to seem disrespectful, but in his panic, he lifted his hand in a gesture that, on instinct, meant peace to humans. He didn't know it here meant accept me as your mate forever. The queen's lips curled, not quite a smile but a sharp, approving twist, and a ripple of voices erupted in the hall. Guards, courtiers, and servants all fell silent, eyes wide. Kieran's stomach dropped. "What did I just?" he whispered, turning to the nearest translator, a slender alien with too many limbs. But the translator shook their head, voice trembling. "It is done," the translator said. "By our law, you have pledged yourself to Her Majesty." Kieran felt like the floor had opened beneath him. He had traveled across galaxies, survived asteroid storms, navigated alien politics, and yet this single, clumsy human gesture had undone all of it. He wanted to protest, to explain, but the queen's gaze was pinned to him, patient and terrifyingly patient. She stepped forward. Each motion was like watching a river carve stone, inevitable, relentless. "Kieran," she said, her voice low, melodic, almost hypnotic, "you have chosen wisely." Kieran swallowed hard. His mind screamed, "I didn't choose anything." Yet the hall hummed with an expectation he could not deny. Every eye was on him. Every heartbeat was a drum calling him forward. And suddenly he realized the truth. There was no way out. Their ancient law demanded it. He was bound to her. And somewhere deep inside, fear twisted with a strange, unacknowledged spark, an echo of curiosity, of something dangerous yet thrilling. Kieran followed the queen through a corridor that seemed to breathe. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting his armor in fractured, shifting fragments. Every step echoed in his chest. The guards flanking them moved silently, their elongated forms gliding rather than walking. Kieran's human mind struggled to make sense of it all. "She will test you," whispered the translator, who hovered nervously at Kieran's side. "Not as a king tests a soldier, but as a mate tests a heart." Kieran's stomach knotted. "A heart? Mine? I barely know her." The queen's laughter drifted ahead, soft but undeniable, a sound that seemed to curl around him, sticky and impossible to ignore. He glanced at her. She walked with an elegance that made his armor feel clumsy, like a cage. Her eyes flicked to him occasionally, measuring, calculating, teasing. They entered a vast chamber called the Court of Living Shadows. Dozens of aliens waited, their forms shifting subtly, cloaked in fabrics that seemed part of their skin. They bowed, but the weight of expectation crushed Kieran before he could even think. A voice boomed, echoing through the chamber, but no tongue he knew could translate it fully. He relied on the translator's hurried whispers. "You must speak in the bond of gestures," it said. "Every movement carries meaning. Every hesitation can offend." Kieran's pulse quickened. "I just wanted to survive." He attempted a bow, careful to keep his fingers aligned. But one too many, one too few, and the room seemed to twitch, almost like the walls themselves noticed his error. He saw the queen's gaze fix on him, sharp but not unkind. Then she did something that stole the breath from him. She reached out, not with formality, but with a deliberate, gentle touch on his arm. The moment her skin brushed his, warmth unlike anything human surged through him. He could feel the hum of her being, the pulse of centuries-old power tempered by curiosity, amusement, desire. "Enough," she said softly, in a tone that carried across the room. "He is mine." Gasps ran through the crowd. Kieran froze. "No, wait, I didn't agree to anything." Yet the Queen's expression softened just enough for him to sense. She did not see him as a threat. Not yet. Later, alone in a small chamber off the court, she studied him. "You are fragile human, yet brave," she said. Her eyes narrowed. "Do you understand the weight of what you have done?" Kieran swallowed, gripping the edge of a balcony. I didn't mean." "You did. And now we begin," she interrupted, but there was no harshness. Only inevitability, like fate itself, had drawn a line through the stars and placed him here. As the door closed behind her, Kieran realized the truth he couldn't escape. Survival would demand more than obedience. It would demand trust. And he wasn't sure he could give that. Yet something deep inside him whispered, "Maybe you don't have a choice." The hum of the palace grew louder, like it was alive, and he shivered, unsure whether in fear or in anticipation. The next morning, Kieran awoke to a light that pulsed softly through the walls of his chamber. The air smelled faintly of minerals and flowers he couldn't name, sweet and sharp at the same time. He rubbed his eyes, trying to make sense of what was happening. "I'm married to an alien queen. How did this happen?" Before he could think further, a knock sounded, light, deliberate. The queen herself entered, moving as if the floor belonged to her alone. Her gaze pierced him, calm yet impossible to ignore. "Today," she said, her voice smooth as silk yet edged with iron, "you will demonstrate your loyalty." Kieran stiffened. Loyalty. He hadn't even learned her name in a language he could fully understand. The translator hovered nervously, whispering, "The trial of the bond, you must prove your understanding of our ways and your willingness to submit to the law." A wave of dread washed over him. "Submit? I don't even belong here." They walked together into a courtyard. Sunlight, or its alien equivalent, made the crystal tiles sparkle. In the center, a strange device waited, glowing with energy that made Kieran's skin tingle. Alien courtiers circled, murmuring in their musical language. The queen gestured for him to step forward. Kieran swallowed. He lifted his hand, trying to mimic the gestures he had seen the queen perform earlier, hopping to signal respect. But the movement was off by a fraction. A sharp hum resonated from the device. The crowd gasped. The queen's eyes narrowed and Kieran's heart sank. "I already failed." Yet instead of anger, her expression softened. She stepped closer, her presence folding around him like a warm, dangerous current. "You fear," she said, "but you are willing to try. That is acceptable." Kieran blinked. "Try, that's all." Then she reached out again, this time pressing her palm against his chest. The energy from the device flared, and he felt something inside him shift, memories, instincts, emotions he didn't know he possessed. A strange connection formed, faint and trembling, like a thread between their souls. "You feel it," she murmured. "The law binds not just your body, Kieran, but your mind. And if you resist, it will punish you. But if you embrace it, you will survive." He staggered back, dazed. Fear and awe collided inside him. "I could die here. Or I could live, but how do I live with her?" The queen stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do not think of this as chains. Think of it as guidance. In time you will understand. Perhaps even," her lips curved faintly, "even desire it." Kieran's pulse quickened, a mixture of terror and something else, something electric and inexplicable. He couldn't tell if it was fear, fascination, or the tiniest spark of attraction. The law had forced them together, but he could feel the first stirrings of a connection that might survive even the harshest rules. And yet, as the courtiers murmured around them, a shadow flickered across the queen's expression, something unreadable, perhaps a secret he was not meant to see. Kieran swallowed hard. Whatever this bond was, it was only beginning. And he was already in deeper than he had ever imagined. Kieran barely slept. His thoughts raced with visions of the trial of the bond, the thread of connection the queen had forced, or gifted him, and the weight of a law he didn't understand. The palace seemed quieter now, but silence in this place always carried danger. He was not wrong. The translator approached, trembling. There is unrest. Certain factions of the court do not approve of your union. They plot human. Kieran's stomach tightened. Great. Now I'm a pawn in alien politics. He followed the translator through twisting corridors lined with living murals that shifted with every glance. Each step made him more aware of how foreign this world was, and how small, how human he truly was in it. The queen appeared unexpectedly, her armor gleaming in the light. She studied him with an unreadable expression. "You must attend the council today," she said. "They will test you and test me. Do not falter. Fail, and it will not only be your life but ours that suffers." Kieran nodded, though fear gripped him. He had faced storms, starvation, even the vacuum of space, but diplomacy in a world where a single gesture could bind him for life, that was far worse. The council chamber was a cavernous dome, alive with a soft hum that vibrated through Kieran's bones. Alien nobles circled them, eyes like shards of colored glass, whispering. Every glance felt loaded, judging, weighing him like prey. A sharp, commanding voice rang out. "The human Kieran, do you understand the law that binds you to the queen?" Kieran's throat went dry. He swallowed and nodded. I will learn, I will respect it." Laughter rippled through the room, low and dangerous. One of the nobles stepped forward, tall and angular, eyes glittering with malice. "Respect? Do you even know what it means to live under our law? One mistake, one hesitation, and death is mercy compared to what awaits." Kieran's pulse surged. He glanced at the queen. She stood beside him, calm and regal, yet her hand brushed the hilt of her ceremonial blade, a subtle warning that she would protect him, but only if he proved himself. The council demanded he perform a ritual, to place his hand upon the obsidian flame, a sacred energy that burned without heat but tested courage, loyalty, and truth. Hesitation would mean punishment. Kieran closed his eyes. Fear and adrenaline crashed together. He stepped forward. His hand trembled. The flame roared. Pain, visions, memories of his home, and a strange, impossible warmth surged through him. And then a voice. Not the queen, not anyone's, but inside him. "You are chosen. You are bound. You must survive together." When he opened his eyes, the council gasped. Kieran's hand remained unscathed, and for the first time the queen smiled, small, almost imperceptible, but there. "You endure," she whispered to him, "and perhaps you will not break." Kieran's chest heaved. Fear had driven him here, but now something else stirred. A fragile spark of confidence, the faintest whisper that maybe, just maybe, he could navigate this alien world. But as the chamber doors closed, a shadow lingered outside, a figure watching them both, smiling with secrets yet to unfold. And Kieran realized the danger had only begun. Kieran barely recognized himself in the morning light. His hands shook as he ate, still tasting the energy of the obsidian flame. The palace felt alive in ways that made him uneasy, shadows moving like whispers, walls pulsing with alien energy, corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves. But somewhere deep inside, he realized he had survived. The queen entered his chamber without announcement. Her armor gleamed faintly, reflecting the strange, soft light of the room. She studied him silently for a long moment, and Kieran felt exposed, vulnerable, and strangely exhilarated all at once. "You survived," she said finally, her voice a whisper that carried more weight than any shout. "Few do. That tells me something about you." Kieran swallowed. I didn't survive alone." Her eyes flickered at that, and for the first time a trace of something warmer crossed her features. "Perhaps," she admitted. Then her expression sharpened. "The court is not so forgiving. Today you will face another test, but this one is more subtle." He followed her through twisting halls that pulsed with life, the air vibrating softly around them. Courtiers watched them pass, whispers of disapproval and curiosity brushing like wind against Kieran's ears. In a secluded garden, the queen paused. Flowers that glowed faintly in shades he couldn't name leaned toward them, as if curious about their presence. "You must navigate the court's politics as you would a battlefield," she said. "Every word, every glance, every hesitation can betray you. Are you ready?" Kieran nodded, though doubt twisted in his stomach. "I barely understand their laws. How am I supposed to survive this and keep her alive?" The queen stepped closer and their eyes locked. "Then trust me," she said softly. "Trust is a bond as strong as law itself. Without it, you will fall." Kieran felt a pulse in her words, something deeper than law or fear, something intimate, something that touched a part of him he hadn't known existed. That evening, during a gathering in the palace, Kieran had to act. A noble accused him of ignorance, twisting alien gestures into perceived insult. The crowd tensed. Kieran froze, every muscle tight, every instinct screaming to retreat. Then he remembered the queen's words. He met her gaze and she nodded almost imperceptibly. "Trust her, trust the bond." He raised his hand, performed the correct gesture, and spoke a carefully chosen phrase the translator had taught him. Silence fell, then a ripple of murmurs. The noble's lips twitched, anger restrained by respect. Kieran exhaled, heart hammering. Afterward, the queen found him in the garden. The air was cooler here, and the alien flora seemed to lean closer. "You are learning," she said, almost a compliment. Kieran chuckled nervously. "Learning fast enough to survive, maybe." She stepped closer, "And to live?" The question hung in the air. Kieran felt heat rise to his cheeks, his breath catching. He wanted to answer, but no human words seemed sufficient. Instead, he nodded, and the queen's hand brushed his briefly, a spark that lingered long after it ended. For the first time, Kieran realized the law that bound him wasn't just chains. It was a thread, fragile yet strong, weaving him and the queen together. And though the court still whispered and shadows still lingered, he felt something he hadn't before: hope. But somewhere beyond the garden, a hidden enemy watched, smiling. The bond was growing. So was the danger. The night fell with an unnatural silence. Kieran wandered the palace corridors, restless. Shadows seemed to move on their own, whispering secrets he couldn't understand. Every corner, every archway felt alive, watching, waiting. He had survived the court's trials, learned the gestures, and gained a fragile thread of trust with the queen, but the danger never truly left. A sudden alarm shattered the quiet. Red-orange lights flared across the walls. Kieran's stomach sank. Intruders, or something worse. Before he could think, the queen appeared. Her armor glinted, eyes sharp as daggers. "They have breached the eastern gates," she said. Her voice was calm but urgent. "If we do not act, the court will fall. And you," she tilted her head slightly, almost a warning, "may die." Kieran's pulse raced. "Then we stop them," he said, surprising himself. "I'm not just a human pawn anymore, not if she's here." The courtyard was chaos. Alien soldiers clashed with shadowy attackers whose forms shimmered like smoke. Kieran's instincts screamed, and for the first time he moved with confidence, echoing the queen's patterns in battle. Her eyes met his across the fray, and a jolt surged through him, fear and exhilaration mixing into something dangerously close to awe. A blade of light slashed toward him. He ducked instinctively, but the queen was at his side in an instant, deflecting it with a strength that made his jaw drop. "Stay close," she commanded, her voice both steel and warmth. "We fight together." Time slowed. Kieran felt the thread between them tighten, invisible yet undeniable. Every move she made synced with his, every glance communicated more than words could. In that moment, fear transformed into something else: trust, courage, and a bond that defied the laws that had forced them together. They fought side by side, heartbeats matching, until the attackers retreated, dissolving into shadows as mysteriously as they had appeared. Kieran fell to his knees, breathless. The queen approached, her armor scorched but unbroken. "You are formidable," she said softly, almost admiringly. Then, for the first time, her hand lingered on his cheek. The touch sent warmth flooding through him, a spark that made his pulse thrum louder than any alarm. And perhaps necessary. Kieran blinked, overwhelmed. "I survived because you," his voice faltered. Words failed him, but the truth didn't need speaking. Her eyes softened just for a heartbeat. "And because you chose to trust," she whispered. Then she stepped back, regaining the queenly command, leaving Kieran both shaken and alive. As the courtyard settled, he realized the bond was no longer just law. It was something deeper, more dangerous, more thrilling. Something that might consume him entirely if he let it. And somewhere in the depths of the palace shadows, someone was watching them, smiling, patient, and waiting for the right moment to strike. Kieran understood then. Survival was no longer enough. He had to fight, not just for his life, but for the queen, and perhaps, if fate allowed, for himself. Kieran stood at the edge of the palace balcony, the night sky alive with streaks of alien aurora. The wind tugged at his armor, but his focus was on the chamber below. He had trained, survived trials, and fought battles, but nothing had prepared him for this. A shadow moved. Not one of the soldiers, not one of the palace staff. Someone or something was there to test him. A figure emerged, cloaked in black energy, its voice like ice against his bones. "You think you belong here, human? You are a mistake, and mistakes are punished." Kieran's heart pounded, but he didn't falter. He saw the queen approaching, her presence radiant and terrifying, her eyes locked on him with trust and command intertwined. The thread that bound them, the ancient law, the rituals, the bond of touch, pulled taut, connecting them like two halves of a single heartbeat. "You are mine," the queen said, her voice low, resolute, "and no shadow can claim what the law has joined." The figure attacked. Light flared, shadows twisted, and Kieran realized something extraordinary. He could move with the queen as if their thoughts were synchronized. Every strike he parried, every step he mirrored, felt guided by a force stronger than himself. He wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting to protect the bond that had become more than law, more than obligation. The battle raged, energy crackling around them, until finally the shadow recoiled, screaming in fury, and dissipated into nothingness. The courtyard fell silent. Kieran's chest heaved, sweat and adrenaline soaking him. He looked at the queen, and for the first time, fear gave way to clarity. "You stayed," she said softly, stepping close. Her armor glimmered like molten metal in the aurora's light. Her hand touched his face, firm yet tender. "You trusted, even when everything could have destroyed you." Kieran swallowed. "Because I trust you." The words surprised him, carrying more weight than any human language. "Not because I have to, because I want to." Her eyes widened, the first smile breaking through all the steel and authority she had worn like armor. "Then it is no longer just law," she said, her voice almost a whisper, filled with something unspoken but undeniable. "It is choice, and it is ours." Kieran felt the bond pulse between them, not as chains but as threads of something stronger. Connection, respect, desire, and something that might just be love. The palace around them shimmered, alive yet watching, but he no longer felt like a pawn. They stood together, side by side, warriors and equals. And for the first time, Kieran realized that he had crossed more than worlds. He had crossed fear, doubt, and isolation. The queen's hand found his, and this time he didn't flinch. Somewhere in the shadows, a new threat may still linger. But in this moment, Kieran and the queen were unshakable. Bound by law, yes, but strengthened by choice, trust, and an unbreakable spark that neither time nor law nor darkness could destroy. And as the first light of the alien dawn bathed them, Kieran understood what it truly meant to survive and to live.